Hi there. You're listening to Hypercast, an ADHD podcast. I'm Melissa, an ADHD coach and advocate.
Hi, I'm Brianna, an ADHD coach and soon-to-be therapist. We are here to explore all things ADHD, from unexpected challenges to unique strengths.
Join us as we share insights and strategies that empower you to live your best ADHD life.
Ready? Let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to Hypercast.
Welcome to Hypercast. Today's topic is ADHD and friends.
Yay, friendship!
Yay, friendship!
Melissa, why are we talking about friendship today? Everyone needs friends. How is this ADHD specific? Why do we care?
Because I think a lot of us struggle with friendship, and none of us are an island. We need people in our lives.
Absolutely, but that's the case for everyone. No one is an island. Everyone needs friends. Why do we care about friendship and ADHD? What's the link?
The link between ADHD and friendship is that, well, for people with ADHD, friendship can actually be a very challenging thing for us. We can be socially awkward. We can have problems with communication. Sometimes just even gelling with people can be really hard.
Yes and no to a certain extent. I gel really well with my fellow ADHDers and other neurodivergent people. They just seem to get me. Not saying that you don't still have to make an effort in those friendships. I'm just saying that in those cross-cultural, cross-neurotype friendships, it's a little bit more challenging to overcome those communication barriers and those cultural differences because, as we've mentioned previously, ADHD is a unique culture. It is a brain difference, so we see the world differently. So in the same way that, like, an American would shake hands on a business deal and a Chinese person would bow, there are differences that interrupt how we can relate to other people. And it's really hard if you don't know that about yourself, if other people don't know that there are differences, because then they'll just blame you or they'll pick a lot of fights and there's just a lot of things that go down. And you're like, why is this so hard? Everyone else seems to be doing it easier, which is the case for all things ADHD.
Yeah, and I think one of the hard things is that our original experience with this starts in our childhood, and that's where a lot of our understandings and our beliefs are cemented. And we don't have the capacity to really understand ourselves fully at that point or understand why people treat us in certain ways or why we act in certain ways.
Yeah.
And when we struggle with friendships at that age, I think it can cement beliefs about ourselves and even our beliefs about friendship.
Absolutely. Developmentally, children are very egotistical. If you ever talk to a child, they're very me-centered, and that's a normal stage of development. They grow out of that for the most part. But the problem with that is if there is that disconnect, that disruptive, all of my friendships seem to be failing, I'm not doing very well, or I don't have a lot of friends, very easily turns into this is something that's wrong with me. This is my fault. I'm broken, I'm bad, I'm the problem, because children don't have the capacity to understand that it might be external to them. It might be that the other child is different than you or was never taught how to be nice, or that society has placed a bunch of social norms that don't fit for you. And if you're coming from a different culture, a different country, you understand that fitting in is really hard. And if you're born into that neurodivergent difference and you don't know because it's invisible, it's not a visible difference, and it reinforces that belief even further that there's something wrong with me, I'm broken. And it can set you up for low self-esteem, negative self-talk, depression, anxiety, social anxiety, all of those friends of the ADHD.
Yeah, as we grow older, we have tools that we learn along the way. We have coping mechanisms that we learn along the way, but we don't have those, especially at that beginning phase of primary school.
I think that the coping skills and stuff that you've mentioned need to be taught. No one just has that knowledge. Obviously, that's how children learn. They gain those skills over time. And if you're gaining skills because, for example, you haven't been diagnosed yet or you don't know you have ADHD and you're gaining neurotypical skills, those aren't going to serve you in adulthood. Right? You're learning the wrong set of skills for your needs. Yeah, absolutely. In childhood, you don't have those skills in place yet. But if you don't know what works for you or that there is an alternative way of connecting with people or that way is okay and valid and just different, not shameful or
Yeah.
broken, then you're going to not learn the correct skills and have an even harder time fitting in as an adult. And that's especially the case with our late diagnosed friends who who did not know growing up that they were different, and then all of a sudden hit a breaking point and are struggling with a lot of things in life, relationships, jobs, but friendships especially. And it's very isolating and it's very lonely.
There are also instances where people had ADHD their entire life. They're struggling, but they're flying under the radar. Those people often have gained coping mechanisms and skills along the way that they've been utilizing, and they don't even recognize completely. They just know something's wrong, but they don't know how to like put a finger on what it is.
That's like the flip side of the coin, right? I suppose it's like the difference in intensities or high support needs, low support needs, that type of thing. If you can mask, which is very common in women, or if you have a less intense version of ADHD, autism, whatever it is, that, yeah, you would be able to mask. You would be able to blend in, to camouflage yourself. And that provides you with friendships and the socialization that you need, but it comes at a
It
cost.
does.
And that cost is energy. It's knowing yourself. Yeah. Have you heard of the spoon theory? I think we've talked about
We
it
talked a little
before.
bit about it, but do you have like an exact definition of what the spoon theory is?
Yes. So, very briefly, the spoon theory was developed for chronic illness, and it describes the amount of energy you have during a day for certain tasks. And say if you weren't chronically ill or neurodivergent, you would wake up with, say, like 20 spoons, and it would take you 1 spoon to shower, 1 spoon to drive to work, 3 spoons for work, 1 spoon for making dinner, like that type of thing. And you have an ample amount, and tasks cost a low amount of spoons, and you're fine. Whereas if you have a chronic illness, which is the original metaphor, neurodivergent, you're neurodivergent, then you wake up with less spoons automatically, and tasks cost more spoons, right? So it's just a visual way of measuring energy and trying to explain what chronic fatigue or the energy deficits of masking would cause in a person and how that could be exponentially more draining and more difficult to work with.
If I want to make friends and I want to maintain relationships, sometimes I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't. Because if I need to shove that mask on in order to fit in, then I'm going to be completely drained. But if I unmask, then I may not be accepted by my peers in certain circumstances. And I guess that there are these things that are coming up for me. I'm like, what does that mean? So we're talking about ADHD and friendship today. What does it mean for me as someone with ADHD to be a friend?
I would say that what it takes to be a friend is pretty universal. Compassion, empathy, time spent with each other, care. You just care about the other person and want to see them do well, support them, their hopes and their dreams. But the way that
Mm.
occurs is different. Take a step back and answer your question in a kind of roundabout way. What would happen if the friendship was not working? I think will allow us to explore what it feels like when it does work a little bit easier, because it's like friendship is like love. It's intangible.
Yeah.
It's hard to define, but you know when it's not working, right?
Yeah, you can feel it. Yeah. There's actual evidence it's not working. People aren't calling, you're not connecting with each other on a regular basis. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly that type of thing. So say you're in a social situation and you make a joke and it like no one laughs. Or you're telling a story and then someone talks over you and you just fizzle out because no one was listening to your story and okay. Or like someone is talking and you want to say something and you jump in and you interrupt them and now they're upset. And you're just like, I just wanted to share because I was so excited to share. And it like those little things where you're like you're making bids for affection, attention, friendship, whatever, and it's just slightly off. And you're like, something is not right. I'm not being invited to social outings anymore. People seem to just tolerate me rather than really enjoy my presence. That type of thing. Have you ever experienced
Oh,
anything like
no.
that? You know what I'm
I
talking
have
about?
never experienced anything like that. I'm the most normal
Right.
person on the planet. Everybody loved me, and every friendship I've ever made since babyhood still exists.
Oh, that sounds amazing and totally fake.
Friendship's so hard.
We've all experienced where it's just uncomfy and you don't feel like you're really wanted. You want to be there. You don't know how to reach out. And everyone just seems to be okay without your presence. And it hurts. And there's definitely been some times in my childhood and my life where I've been excluded from things, sometimes without even knowing that I've been excluded. And it feels so bad.
It's heart-wrenching. Either you
Mm-hmm.
don't get invited to something or you invite people and they don't wanna be part of it.
You ever had a birthday party where you invite a bunch of people and
Nobody
no one
shows up.
shows up?
Yes, the fact that we both can say that means we both experienced this, and that is just sad.
It is such a common experience. There was a news story I read of a little boy, 5, 6, something like that, invited his entire class. No one bothered to show up, but he really loved fire trucks. So the mom was like, I don't know what to do, and went to the local fire station and they had a party for him. There are good people in the
There
world.
are good people in the world, and honestly, I don't know if I'd wanna be normal. I feel like I'm so much more of an interesting person because I'm not, quote, unquote, "normal."
Oh my God, I so agree. On that note, let's talk about friendships that rock because I definitely have some of those now, and I'm so grateful for them. Turns out most of them are neurodivergent like me. You know, that whole birds of a feather flock together
Yeah.
thing? It's real. If you find your people, the people that are weird like you, crazy like you, interested in the same things as you, the friendship just clicks and it flows and it's so good. For example, I have a group of friends I've been friends with for 20 years, and we're all about to get married or getting married because I'm of the age where it's the time for wedding. And the way that it works is a very neurodivergent way. Like, we'll send memes back and forth, we'll info dump at each other about our favorite like subjects and topics. We have like group calls, we'll talk over each other and interrupt each other, but making sure everyone feels wanted. And then also lowering the expectations for entry, if that makes sense. ADHD, we have a lot of problem with like planning. It's so difficult to schedule those things and it's complicated and whatever. So we just have a call scheduled on Saturdays at this time. If you're available, great. But if you can't be there, there's no pressure to be there, right? So the way that we've done our friendship just is slightly shifted. So there's none of that awkward, you've done it wrong, you've had this conversation wrong, and everything is just so easy.
Ooh, so this is not to rain on your parade. So I've been married for 16 years, and I'm in a different place than you are right now, and the problem with that is that as people get married, they they dial in on their nuclear families, they move, they get busy, life gets crazy, their lives literally expand, and friendships fracture because of those dynamics. And you find yourself at 40 years old going, okay, I have no friends. And then you don't know how to make friends. And it's a very weird place to be. Consistent communication can be very hard for us. I'm impressed that you have a friend group that you have a set time and you meet. I have specific friends that we have a call. And then at the end of the call, we will schedule 1 month out for the next month to ensure that we will actually connect. Because if we do not actually schedule, we will go a whole year or two and we will never speak. I feel like I'm like Debbie Downer on this. I love my friends parade, but as lives shift and change, so do friendships and so do you as a person. And it can make it hard.
But that's why it's so interesting to have our two perspectives on the show. The walks of life change. And I
Yeah.
know that my grandparents, for example, they have some very near and dear close friends to them that they haven't seen in 30 years.
Yeah.
But it's limited mobility, limited access, lives change, as you've said, but they send Christmas cards every year. Inadvertently, we have highlighted two very effective ADHD friendly strategies of staying in touch to combat the time blindness, the object permanence, and the friendship decay, which I will discuss briefly because we as neurodivergent people don't experience friendship decay because of the time blindness.
Yeah.
They're related. But because we don't perceive time in a linear fashion, there's now and there's never. And the object permanence piece, we can often forget friends, right? I have genuinely forgotten my partner existed. And then he sent me a message and I was like, oh, I love this person. Let me message them back. Genuinely just forgot they existed. Same with my friends. I was like, oh, wow, I haven't talked to you in 6 months. I completely forgot you were a person. But the friendship doesn't decay because that pause exists for both of us. It's like, oh, we both haven't talked in 6 months. pick it right up
Yeah.
from where we left off. If you have a neurotypical person and you go 6 months, a year without talking to them, they think that the friendship has ruptured because they can perceive time,
Yeah.
right? So they're like, this person hasn't talked to me in 6 months. They clearly don't want to hang out. They don't want to be friends. They think that we're the problem because society's built around that. We're not the problem. It's the communication breakdown. It's a two-way street. If you're like aware of the problem, you're like, hey, my brain, sometimes I forget. Could you step up and reach out more? I know that it feels bad to like always be the one reaching out and you want me to reach out to demonstrate that I care also, but I do care, but I need this accommodation. Friendships break down over little things that are just miscommunications or like cultural differences or differences in brain. And if you are able to know that about yourself, understanding first, and then communicate your needs to other people, and then for them to understand and be receptive and accepting and accommodating of that, it strengthens the friendship. It makes the problems basically disappear because there are always going to be problems in friendships and things like that. Things come up. But if you talk about it and you understand where each other is coming from, that's the whole shebang of friendship.
And honestly, that is a great litmus test for a friendship, because if someone isn't willing to offer you a slight accommodation out of love for you and for your friendship, then is that friendship worth having?
Exactly. And it's not a 50-50, oh, I've done this for you, so you have to do this for me. That's a really toxic friendship. You do not want to keep score in friendships. That may break down and decay. But what you want is like a, oh, I'll get this one, you get the next one
Yeah.
type of thing. A little give and take. Oh, I'm only able to do this today. Oh, no worries. I'll make up the slack next time you can do. It's that push and pull.
And it doesn't even have to be this time or that time, but it's a natural push and pull. And
Yeah,
if I'm sure I give in ways that maybe someone else can't. Or if I have a strength, I offer that strength to them in time of need. And that is the love in friendship. But if someone can't give anything to you, they may not be accessible or able to be your friend, or maybe they're just not being your friend at all. That's at the top of the show. You mentioned that sometimes you can be taken advantage of. And it's important to
yeah,
notice these patterns in people that if they're not willing to care for you, and I'm not saying be narcissistic and everyone must love me, but if they can't be reciprocal with friendship and love, and if they can't be there for you, then it may not be a friendship worth having.
equitable, not
Equitable.
equal.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that piece of missing social cues or misinterpreting nonverbal body language, it's very easy to take advantage of someone who feels lonely and is desperately looking for friendship and support. And if you happen to meet a toxic person who is using and taking and not giving, and I know that's also a very common experience of neurodivergent people who there's someone who's like, oh, I'll only invite you if you can provide whatever it is. Oh, you have a cabin somewhere that I want to go. Okay, I'll invite you so I can go there. Or you have access to food or activities or something that they want, and they never invite you or they never give anything back. And it's hard to notice because, one, memory issues. So we can't necessarily remember all of the times that they've done this to us. And then, yeah, pattern recognition and things like that. But it's hard to, if you're masking, to be in a situation where you can analyze yourself and how you're feeling because you're putting up this mask in this front to fit in.
Yeah.
And so it's not really going to sink in that they're mistreating you because you're just trying to fit in and you're trying harder and harder and they're using it as some kind of like carrot on a stick type of thing. Like, oh, you can be friends if you do this, if you do this, and you're just too busy chasing it to notice.
Yeah. Someone once told me that if it feels bad, it's not love. And I'm not saying like an argument makes you feel sad, but if the way someone treats you makes you feel bad, that's not a loving friendship. And that's where that checking in with yourself is really important. Taking a moment to pause is important. How are
Mm,
you acting in that moment? How are you feeling? How are you reacting in that moment? Yeah, are you being a people pleaser just to try to fulfill that need for friendship in your life? Yeah, because there's better people out there that are more worthwhile of your time.
absolutely. And wouldn't you want to have someone in your life who loves and supports you so you can feel safe to take that mask off and to not always have to be around toxic people?
Yeah, there's nothing better than being able to take that mask off and be 100% yourself with somebody and to just have that camaraderie and care about each other and not judge one another. It is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. I have a slightly off topic,
What? You have ADHD and you have something slightly off topic to discuss?
on topic, but I don't know how to transition, so the
Ah,
transition has been
there we
made.
go. We're
Done
transitioning.
now.
Okay.
Segue. So there's this piece that I want to discuss surrounding novelty. ADHD motivation is different than neurotypical motivation. So it's interest based, novel, urgent. I forget the last one, but basically it's not about consequences or rewards. It's about interest. And also, there is a concept called dopamining or dopamine seeking behavior, which, if you are low in dopamine, there's like emotion regulation. You're in a window of tolerance, and that's where you want to be. But if you're too low, you're going to have some problems. So, my point is that you might want to start conflict. You might want to pick a fight or start drama or impulsively display some emotions or some tempers run high or things like that can impact a friendship. And that's the thing that I wanted to talk about also, because we're back to the understanding piece again. If you understand that about yourself and the reason you're lashing out is because low on dopamine and you're needing some novelty, you're needing some drama, you're needing some interest, and the way that you take that out on the people around you is going to impact your friendship. So you need a healthier coping mechanism, right? It's like I said, it's a two-way street. It's not just their problem and they're ignoring your needs and they're not talking to you or they're mistreating you. It's also about the way that you react in situations. And because we are emotionally dysregulated a lot of the time, and there's that volatility piece, especially in children, especially with people when their emotions are running high, things like that, you can have temper tantrums, you can steal your siblings' toys, you can break things, anything to get that attention and the dopamine that your brain needs, which is not conducive or healthy to
No.
friendships. And if you can find a way to regulate yourself and your emotions, and if there is a blow up, because they happen, right? We're human, we're not perfect. Coming back once you've regulated to that person and apologizing and owning that and being like, hey, I was dysregulated at that time. I'm sorry for lashing out. I didn't mean what I said. I was just trying to pick a fight, but I know that what I said probably hurt you. I want to repair that bridge,
Yeah.
like offering that olive branch and taking the time. Because, like I said, it's not all sunshine and roses. Friendships aren't perfect, right? You have to work at them and own your mistakes the same way that they have to own theirs.
We did an episode on communication, and in that episode, we talked about naming your feelings. I find it personally find it very helpful that if I do have feelings come up in a moment when I'm with somebody else, a friend, someone I care about, whether it's novelty seeking or I'm frustrated or overwhelmed, I will tell them that I'm having feelings in that moment. I will even say I'm bored. If I put it on the
Mhm.
table, then I'm saying, "Hey, I'm bored. Maybe we need to do something about that. Maybe you can help me find some novelty. Maybe we can change up what we're doing right now."
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And if you have a conversation about that beforehand, because if you say I'm bored, the neurotypicals are going to misinterpret that podcast we already
And
reported.
unless that person knows you very well.
Yeah, if you just say I'm bored, they're going to be a little hurt. Oh, hanging out with me is boring, blah, blah, blah. Neurodivergent will get it right away. Don't worry about it. Neurotypical will be like, oh, that kind of hurts. And be like, let's have a conversation beforehand. Being like, when I say I'm bored, it doesn't mean I don't like hanging out with you. I enjoy your company. I just want to be doing an activity right now because I'm understimulated and it's causing physical pain. I don't know if you know that, but like with ADHD, if you're bored, it is physically painful. And a lot of people don't understand that when we say bored, we mean like it hurts. I need to do something now. I am hurting. Help. So if you have the conversation and be like, I'm bored, and that means help, very useful. A very great friendship building tool to trust someone enough with that information. So when you do need help, they're able to provide that help. An interesting strategy. I don't know if this will work for everyone, but I have a few safe people that I pick fake fights with. It's not personal. We're talking about higher level debates. Be like, is like Mercury a better planet than Jupiter or like something, and we like pick a side, arbitrary like debate team style, and then you just argue your points back and forth and get really heated about it, but it doesn't mean anything. Not everyone loves to debate. Not everyone loves to have that high conflict. But for me, it's something that really fuels my
But there's a
brain.
difference between
Um,
debating and arguing. Depends on how you define it, but I too love
yeah,
a good debate.
never
Yeah.
personal attack. And sometimes rough. Sometimes they're like euthanasia or like race
But
wars.
come on,
Oh,
that's so much more interesting than talking about the weather.
I would agree with you, but the neurotypicals, they love to talk about the weather.
Anyway, one of the things that you mentioned that putting my feelings on the table may not be the best thing in a circumstance where I may need a mask or may not be with a safe person. In instances like that, you can employ things like excusing yourself from a conversation. You can go and grab a drink, take a deep breath. Changing your location can actually shift your brain.
Coping strategies for you so you don't stick your foot in your mouth and say something you don't mean to hurt other people's feelings.
I'll bring interactive things with me to a party, like a deck of cards or something like that, because
Yep.
it gives me the opportunity. If I feel like restless, I can pull out some cards and at least I'm using my hands. That's a good way to meet people too that you don't already know.
A great strategy for sure in terms of that. Another one that I like is hanging out in groups of threes. I rarely accept a one-on-one hangout unless I know the person.
Hmm.
Because if I'm in a group of three, they can entertain themselves while I dissociate and take a minute to regulate or zone out or think about something else. And then I can tune back in when I want to. Whereas if it's just a one on one situation, obviously with the people I'm very close to, we don't mind
Yeah,
silence. It's not a big deal. But I love like group settings, not huge groups because it's
it can
also
be
a little bit
overwhelming.
overstimulating. Yeah.
But I love this idea of instead of one on one, three, because that takes the responsibility off of you to be
Mhm.
consistently present, which can totally drain you of energy.
Okay. Recap. To recap today's episode, we talked about the struggles that people with ADHD have making friends. And that can be for a variety of reasons. We forget to text them back. We interrupt them a lot. They're misinterpreting what we're saying. We're misinterpreting what they're saying. It's not the right fit. Or most importantly, we don't understand ourselves and our needs and how to ask for what we need
Yeah.
in a friendship, which can be difficult because then there's just conflict over and over again because you're not getting what you need, they're not getting what they need, and no one's able to ask for what they need. We talked about good friendships and bad friendships and some strategies for how to build friendships, to maintain friendships, and to know in yourself when the friendship isn't right for you
Mm.
and when to cut it and run and find something better in your life.
One thing here that was coming up for me hearing you say those things is the knowing yourself piece. Knowing yourself, it's not something that happens automatically. That is something that does take time and introspection and work.
But here's the thing though, that is so key and so important to know yourself. And wouldn't you want your friends to learn about themselves, to grow as people? Because you're growing always as
Yeah.
people. So if you're learning more about yourself and they're learning more about themselves, and then communicating those changes and re exploring the new interesting things that your friends are doing as they grow and learn, right? There's that novelty
Yeah.
piece. It can be so interesting to maintain friendships for long periods of time and not just go to the next new shiny thing because there is growth, because there is novelty, because there is new interest, there is new things to talk about. It doesn't always have to be the weather, right? People are so
Yeah. It's
fascinating.
so fun to see what people become and what they make of their lives.
Yeah. And your friends, you want to love and support them and you celebrate them as they go through these changes in life and you yourself change. And if anything comes up because of that, then you get to have a conversation about that. And how cool is that?
It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome because together you grow and you learn from each other and you become even better people along the way.
That's the best part of friendship, in my opinion. The growing because of each other. I'm a huge musical kid. So from Wicked,
Yeah.
the I've changed for good
Yeah.
one where they're talking about how because I knew you, I have changed for good. And I love that. Sorry, I just got chills.
I got teary eyed.
Musicals will do that. But yeah, I think that about sums up our conversation about ADHD and friendship.
If you are looking for further resources to aid you in your ADHD journey, Brianna and I are both ADHD coaches. You can find my information at likemindcoaching.com. And Brianna, what is your website?
Mine is www.understandingadhd.ca because I'm Canadian. Canadian-y.
Oh, can you do it again?
You like my accent, my Canadian accent-y?
When you get really passionate, you get very Canadian, and it's adorable.
Delightful.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Hypercast.
If you've enjoyed today's episode and want to stay connected, be sure to rate and subscribe. And check out the show notes for links to our social media and websites.
Whether you're seeking practical tips, heartfelt stories, or just a sense of community, Hypercast is here for you.
Remember, you're not alone in your ADHD journey. Together, we can navigate the highs and lows with courage and compassion.
So until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep embracing your unique neurodiversity.
Catch you on the next episode of Hypercast.